It's your boy Big L with another episode of the forum, man. There's some things that have been going on here lately that been frustrating the life out of me that I really wanted to take some time to address. Uh, but the one big thing, man, that has really confused me and frustrated the hell out of me is this respectability politics. Now I know for some of y'all, man, respectability politics is not a a new thing. You have a clear understanding of exactly what I'm talking about and what I'm describing when I say uh, respectability politics. Now, some of you may not have any idea. Some of y'all might be sitting back thinking to yourself, man, what the hell was Big L talking about this time? But let me break it down to you because I think it's something that we have to get a grasp on and get a hold on within black society. Uh, Respectability politics originated as a cultural, sexual, domestic, employment, and even artistic set of guidelines and rules uh, for blacks to follow with the intention of being viewed as human in a dominant white society. Basically, in a simple format, respectability politics is the rules and guidelines, unofficial rules and guidelines that are put out there by the dominant white society that blacks should follow in order to be viewed as human, to be viewed as someone who is part of the human race. Uh, by following these set of rules and guidelines, it allows blacks the recognition by the dominant white society as someone who is human. Now, white supremacy has done such a masterful job of getting blacks to feel and condition us to respond in such manners that oftentimes we have no idea why the hell we're doing things. Okay? We have no idea why we act a certain way or why we think a certain way or even why we do a certain thing. Okay? Now, here's the thing that I want you to think about. Just last week, there was a sheriff in Milwaukee by the name of David Clark. Sorry, David Clark, who came out against the NAACP, saying how the NAACP should not be focused on police conduct, should not be focused on the behaviors of the police, should not be focused on the fact that the police have been abusing, raping, murdering, beating blacks for generations. The NAACP had came out in Milwaukee saying how condemning the police department there for having a shoot first mentality, a shoot first approach. Okay? So then this sheriff came out and said that the NAACP should not be focused on the police, and the real focus and the real problem is black men, and that if black men were in the homes, you know, these problems wouldn't be taking place. If black women weren't having babies out of wedlock, you know, cops wouldn't be killing black kids. Cops wouldn't be raping black women. Cops would not be abusing and taking advantage of their power and authority in the black community, which is a bunch of bullshit completely. But those type of respectability politics has been taking place for some time, for a long time. President Barack Obama, while he was in office, had lambasted black community, man, for a variety of different doggone issues. You know, talking about if we didn't stop watching Sports Center so much. You know, we would get off the couch, start watching Sports Center, get out there and do something. Things would be different. Stop eating cold Popeyes. Making all these different type of generalizations and stereotypes. Now, this is something that Bill Cosby, for the longest time, was noted for. He would get up in front of crowds of whites and blacks and blast black folks for standing on the corners, for drinking certain types of liquors, for having quote unquote poor English, you know, stop speaking Ebonics, read books, yada 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 yada. Don Lemons got up and, you know, he's notorious for doing the same thing. Getting up and shaming and scolding black folks. Okay? With the intent of getting us to behave a certain way in order for us to be viewed differently by white supremacy. You know, and whites have applauded this mindset because their thing is, you know, if black people still did more of this and more of that and less of this and less of that, then, you know, racism wouldn't be a problem. But that is absolutely false. It gives and forces zero accountability of racism, white supremacy back on where it belongs. This myth that white approved performance will eradicate racism because all of a sudden white folks will finally like black people is bullshit. And I'm using that term bullshit on purpose because it is exactly what many people tend to believe. You hear it all the time. Matter of fact, not too long ago, it was this article that came out by this successful black dude. I think he lived in New York, a lawyer of some sort, who came out and said that he was not letting his black children, his black sons particularly, wear hoodies. And they wouldn't wear clothing with t-shirts with writing on it. And they wouldn't wear jeans and sneakers. That they had to dress a certain manner and dress a certain way in order for him, you know, as a way of protecting his kids. He didn't want to identify. He didn't want his kids to identify with a quote-unquote black culture. But this idea that one can overcome white supremacy by way of our personal actions is flat out nonsense. But that if we present ourselves as worthy, quote unquote, then, you know, we won't have to worry about the dominant white society treating us wrong. But this is not new, and this is what I want to people to understand. Don Lemons didn't invent this. Bill Cosby didn't invent this. You know, President Barack Obama didn't invent this. This goes back further than, you know, as far as Booker T. Washington. And I'm not attributing this mentality to either one of these particular people. You know what I'm saying? But when these blacks, successful blacks, get out and dole out what they call tough love to the black community about education, you know, hard work, being better parents, pulling up your pants, or what have you, you know, they're not only reinforcing racist stereotypes, but they're also feeding the narrative that racism is either not as prevalent or not as vicious as others are making it out to be. You know, black people can achieve all that they want if they're willing to work for it, if the thinking goes. We just have to dedicate ourselves to the right things. That denies absolute responsibility towards white supremacy as the catalyst and cause for this damn behavior that they continue to spit upon and place upon us. Now, let me say this. Is there a level of culpability, of responsibility that blacks could have in their behavior? Absolutely. But what we don't do is we don't look at the root cause of these damn behaviors when we see them taking place. We never want to point to the reason why these things are taking place. You know, the reason why there's single parent homes. You know, the reason why there's a poor educational system in the black community. The reason why the prison industrial complex is running as damn rapid as it has been. The reason why. No one wants to go to the reason why. You just want to point to the victim and say if the victim would do something differently, then everything would be alright. Now the thing is, respectability politics, even you see the same thing taking place when it comes to victims of sexual assault and sexual abuse. The same type of mentality falls in place. Well, you hear the same damn thing. Well, if she wasn't dressed a certain way, she wouldn't have asked for it. You know, by her dressing and wearing a particular outfit, she asked for that. She asked for that type of behavior to take place, man. You know, it frustrates the hell out of me. You know, many whites reference and point to racism as a black issue. Like it's, you know, black folks are the ones who have a problem with racism. You know, so they tend to leave racism up to blacks fixing it. Well, I don't buy into that nonsense. I don't believe that. You know, far too many of these quote unquote exceptional black people, such as the Obamas, use this bootstrapping theory to appease whites. You know, whites conveniently do not have to take any responsibility for black lives. You know, people are supposed to take responsibility for the, you know, the ways that white supremacy has impacted our lives, while simultaneously not mentioning race of being there in the first place. You know, this whole notion, man, that if we did better, if we acted better, then these things wouldn't be taking place to us. And we see the argument, man, time after time. Let's go back and think about some of the recent killings in our community. You know, let's go back and let's look at how they treated Mike Brown. To this day, they still criminalize, you know, Mike Brown, and many blacks buy into that notion, man. The dude who is playing Falcon in a new doggone Captain America movie, Mackie is his last name. This dude comes out and he's talking about how the reason why, you know, these black movies are not, quote unquote, black movies are not being successful as they were monetarily, is because people are sick and tired of talking about race. You know, nobody want to hear about race no more. You know, so he says to his nephew that dreadlocks, you know, he makes him watch First 48 whenever his, you know, to show him that, you know, what's taking place on First 48, so his nephew won't commit those type of crimes. Like, yo, you can't wear dreadlocks because you see what happens to people who wear dreadlocks. These are the type of things that take place. So automatically he's feeding into this respectability political thinking that if you don't have dreadlocks, you'll be viewed in a certain manner. So we continue to let white supremacy in a dominant white society, these folk dictate and create the standard of measure on what we should look like and how we should function. So the way now, in order for me to be successful or to get some sense of success, I have to dress a certain way. not to fit in black culture, but as a way of fitting in towards the dominant white society. And I don't even think that we, as many black people, I often think about that, man, how much conditioning we actually have in regards to what they say or make us do or condition us to do. You know, it's really, really disappointing when I see us grappling and wrestling with the dominant white society over these type of things, man. You know, respectability politics, bruh, woman, is a problem, man. You know, and you'll see people try to attempt to use politics of respectability as a way to justify racism and white supremacy, using the thought process, well, if he didn't do that, would he still be alive? You know, if he wouldn't have done that, if she wouldn't have dressed that way, what, you know, I just want people to begin to think, man. Think through these things. Don't just sit back and let others dictate what you think and what you feel. Think for yourself. Begin to question these doggone things, man. Begin to question these doggone things. Just wanted to drop that in your ears, man. Drop that on you to get you to be able to think about these doggone things. This is your boy Big L, man. Pay attention to, pay attention to the respectability politics and begin to pick up on it. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, man. Y'all have a good one. It's your boy Big L. I'm out.